Hey guys, I've got a high frequency transmission for coaches, healers, and practitioners who are struggling and attached unconsciously to the struggle. So, this wounded healer archetype I want to talk about because it's an archetype that is in my arsenal of archetypes, the wounded healer. Many people who work as healers and coaches, like really transformational coaches and practitioners, have this archetype in their arsenal. And there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds a bit like, ooh, wounded healer. There's nothing wrong with it. Often it is the wound that makes you the healer. It is the wound that makes you the healer. And the interesting piece about the wounded healer is that the journey of the wounded healer is heal thyself. So as we're healing and working with others, then we can transform our own woundedness and shift it into healed and shifted into whole, and remembering that you are whole even beyond the wound. And reclaiming and remembering your power is not in anything that has happened to you or anything that you do, but in who you are, as remembering your divinity, remembering your wholeness, like the wholeness that lives beyond the wound, right? Whatever the wound is, the wholeness, remembering that even in the moment of the wound, that you are still a whole being. And I've been doing a lot of work myself around this, around showing up more, around transmuting this archetype myself, and particularly with a reference to showing up in a bigger way for my industry, in particular showing up in a bigger way for other healers who are in that lower level struggle, who kind of have amazing skills but haven't yet broken through, like in a tangible way, a measurable way, who haven't broken through like 6 figures of earning for their healing skills, right? Who struggle to make a basic living wage in a, Western privileged world country, to make a basic living wage from their service to humanity. And so then I'm kind of breaking through my next level of that. I've broken through that 6-figure thing, but now I'm looking to break through a 7-figure barrier. And so I'm going through this same thing, shifting into this next level of showing up in a bigger way and serving people in a bigger way, and being wanting to be transparent and authentic about my journey as I go through it in a useful way. So I had a big breakthrough last night around the attachment to the wound, as the attachment to the struggle, and the attachment to healing as a process, as a way of validating the healer identity, right? Because if healing doesn't take, like if healing was instantaneous, if it was like 1 second and you could heal instantaneously, then would healers, practitioners, coaches be out of a job? Like there is an element of if healing was instantaneous, and it can be, and it is, if healing was instantaneous, then it would invalidate or undermine the journey of healing that people go on, and the unfolding and the learning along the way, and the beautiful kind of complexities of understanding your own nature as you go through unpacking. Ooh, what was this wound about? And why couldn't I do this? And what was the beliefs there? And what was the meta programs? And why did that happen? And what was the emotions? And what was the past lives? And what was involved in that? And kind of unpacking the beautiful humanity of going into the story and unpacking the wound in order to shift the wound and heal the wound, and then create different behavior and then create different results. So what if you could just go bam and then just do the different thing to get the different results. Well, I know people like this. I know people like this, and they don't hold that archetype of the wounded healer. They hold a different set of archetypes. And so for those of us who have this wounded healer archetypes, it's almost like, it can almost seem like those people are unicorns. Like, how could you just do the thing? Like, what about all the resistance, right? And what about clearing the things and clearing the blocks along the way? And they just don't seem to have any blocks. They just take action and that's it. In that particular area, you know, in the area of their genius. In other areas, they may have blocks. You know, we're all humans and we all have different kinks in our chakra hose. So I had this insight yesterday about this wounded healer archetype is being directly connected to the attachment to the identity of being a healer. And there's no need for a healer if there is no wound. There is no need for a healing community if there is no journey that people go on. And so the love that you have, the equal love that you have for the healing community and the community and the relationships that you have and the identification and the self validation that you get from being a healer and helping people change and supporting their change is in equal parts supporting you and undermining your own ability to move to the next level. This is like the kind of landing of my priestess archetype. So if we shift from being a wounded healer where the journey has to take a long time, and we also in certain areas of our lives unconsciously sabotage or undermine our own capacity to shine and show up and be the result, then we're self-sabotaging ourselves from showing up in a new way to actually be the transmission of the result. And so when you get to show up as the transmission of being that result, then it kind of collapses this concept of linear time and that healing has to take a long time and be a process. And you can start to shift into like healing miracles where someone was stuck and then now we do a thing and now they're healed and they just go on with their lives. And so that radically transforms your transformational value. It radically transforms your ability to show up in a new way. It radically transforms your ability to be in power because you are really remembering yourself as a miracle worker, right? And even, you know, going back to religious prophecies, it's like, you know, Jesus in the Bible saying this and more you can do and you will do. And this remembrance that we are going through as a community of ascending beings is in the remembrance of ourselves as miracle workers, and the collapsing of linear time into quantum shifts, right? If this is the healing journey, then and we're attached to the healing journey as like, I go along this healing journey and that's the journey. What about if we just went, I want to get from here to here and I'm just going to spend time and I'm just going to go, you know, like that classic thing, I'm just going to go straight through it, right? If we can connect into this sense of self as being, you know, like Joe Dispenza says, no time, no thing, nowhere, no one, and can let go of the identity as a healer and let go of the identification with the woundedness, even in a deeply unconscious way. Hello, I'm activating my fifth chakra here. When we can let go of the identification of the woundedness, then we have the capacity to show up as a transformational transmission of change. And then you don't necessarily need a process or a script or a set of trainings. It is in the being of the result that you can help people shift. And it is in being your joy and expressing what brings you joy, not to save the world, but to just be yourself and being what brings you joy. That's what I wanted to come through today. I hope it was useful. Lots of love. I am working on unfolding this realization into a format, into a training, unbelievably, a training that can help you to remember your transformational power and to unhook and grow up and take your wounded healer on a transformational journey so that you can show up differently in the world as a being transmission of change. Along the way, you might learn some specific skills, strategies, processes, because that's the being work. And there is also the doing work and the skill development. So I can now do both. So I'm still working on this. I will reconfigure my Growth Collective program in light of these new awakenings, and I'll get back to you shortly. But if this resonates with you, if you resonate with the idea that you have been unconsciously keeping yourself in struggle because it is a secondary gain that is stopping you from moving into your greater self fulfillment and your greater being of your soul gifts, and you've been too attached to the identity of the healer and the community and joy that you get in the process of going on a healing journey, if you'd like to kind of break that down and still be within the community, like we don't have to give up the community, we can be a community of enlightened beings, and enjoying the process of unfolding our remembrance rather than doing a healing journey or learning a specific thing. So all of those things can be included, and adding in this next layer of magical transmission remembrance. If this speaks to you in any way, shape or form, write transmission below. And I want to connect with people that are really feeling this work, and I want to help this connection and communication to shift the way that I show up as a teacher, as a priestess, as a trainer, as a human being. So if you've been struggling with a wounded healer and you want to shift into being like a transformational priestess of change, then or priest or wizard or whatever it is, write transmission in the comments below, and I want to set up some time to chat to some people next week about it and start to shape this based on what you want. So let me know. Bye.